These former Arizona State Sun Devils showed up to the Combine with some mixed results.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Thanks for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day, and a special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcasts, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast as well at LO_Sun Devils. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back in. Today we are going to be talking about the NFL Scouting Combine that went down over the weekend. There was only one representative for the Sun Devils in Ro Torrence, who did not compete in any drills. Now, he did do the measurements, and he came in according to, where is it? I had it pulled up. Alabama.com. I had it pulled up, and now it's not there. There we go. He came in at 6'3", 208 pounds, 34 and about a quarter-inch arms or an eighth an inch arms, and 8.5-inch hands. He did not participate, like I said, in any of the drills. So no 40 time, no bench press or anything like that. But the size was not a surprise. The size was not a surprise. A little bit of a tongue twister for you there. We all knew that he was going to be kind of built that way. And I really wish he participated. But I'm curious if he's just saving his actual workout for Arizona State's Pro Day, which I don't have a date for at this time, and that'll lead to some of the other guys too. I mean, you'll see Trey Brown and Deshaun Mallory and all the other guys that we have previously talked about work out at Arizona State's Pro Day, but I do wish that Torrence had competed. I think it would have been really good for him, if for no other reason than to get his name out there so that the media can look at him and they go, oh, wow, a 6'3" corner who ran a insert 40 time, as long as it was good, obviously, which I don't think that Torrence is slow. I just don't think he's elite speed, but neither here nor there. Point is, I wish he did compete, but nonetheless, he did not. But three former Sun Devils did show up to the Combine. One of them absolutely blew the doors off of the event. One of them was pretty rock solid, and the other one just did not compete. And we'll go ahead and start with the one who did not compete, and that is, of course, Jayden Daniels, the former quarterback and the Heisman winner at LSU. It is no secret the way I feel about Daniels, but I will be completely objective for his draft process. I can do that much. And it was unfortunate that we didn't see him come in and do really anything. Like, he measured at 6'4", 210 pounds, which that's a good weight for him. Or wait, I can't remember if he actually weighed in or not, because I think, I don't remember off the top of my head. Anyways, he didn't do anything. And the reason why was him and his teammate Malik Neighbors said that they wanted to instead do their stuff and strut off their potential and everything else at the LSU Pro Day. Here's how I feel about that. I think that this is a really good situation for those two, because you're going to be in a more controlled environment. You're going to be a lot more familiar with everything. And obviously, Daniels and Neighbors have a very good connection with each other. So instead of Daniels throwing to guys that he doesn't know, he's going to be throwing to guys that he is very familiar with. And Brian Thomas Jr. will be another one of those guys. He did compete at the Combine, and he looked very good at the Combine. But Daniels will be able to throw to the two of them at their Combine. He'll do all sorts of stuff, I imagine. I'm really curious if he ends up running the 40. You typically don't see like elite athletic quarterbacks that like to run their 40s, because I think that it kind of gets mixed in with he should translate to X position. Like you had that thing with Lamar Jackson back in the 2018 cycle where everyone was saying he should move to wide receiver. And I think we all know that he probably ran in the 4.3s. He at worst was a super low 4.4 runner in the 40 time. But he opted not to do that because you didn't want to stir up that conversation of, oh, well, look how fast he is. Now it really makes sense to push him out wide. I'm curious if that ends up what goes down with Jayden Daniels. And with Daniels, I don't think you've seen as much conversation about him changing positions. It definitely was to start the year. I remember to start the year, there was a lot of conversation about moving him to running back or moving him to receiver because he is a big kid at 6'4", that we know of now. I mean, we'll get the official measurements, but you do have some people that may question it, but I don't think it's nearly as loud as guys in previous years, which has me wondering if he will do the 40 time, because I feel like he's not a 4.3 guy, but he is a very low 4.4 guy. That is a fast kid. I mean, he can jet. And it just makes me wonder if he's willing to do it. But there's other stuff that he could do as well. Obviously, all eyes will be on his playing weight. If he is the 210 that he's listed on the NFL.com website as, people will be happy. If he's less than that, people are going to have a little bit of questions because he's always been kind of a rail thin player. Because when you're 6'4", 210, I mean, you're just real skinny. Me at 6 foot 210 or whatever I weigh, I choose not to look at the scale, is very different because I'm not as long, I'm not as tall. Jayden is a very thin guy. He came out of high school as a 170-pound kid. The measurements are going to be very important for him. And if he does compete in any drills like the 40 time and whatnot, will be very interesting to see how he tests. But the bottom line here is he opted not to compete. I wish he did, because dude's an absolute physical specimen. I would love to see what he could do, because as an athlete, I mean, there are very few guys in the last 10 years that look like Jayden Daniels. He's tall. He's got a big cannon on his right arm to be able to push the ball down the field. He's got all sorts of tools and talent to be able to translate to the next level. And you would love to see all of that in person and whatnot. Doesn't do it at the combine. He did say he was going to do some more stuff at his pro day. I'm curious if he does everything or if it's just going to be a lot of throwing drills and whatnot. Again, Malik Neighbors, his teammate and a finalist for the Biletnikoff Trophy, will also be doing his stuff at the pro day. It's going to be a very, very important pro day for Jayden Daniels. Really disappointed he didn't compete. I understand it, to be in a more controlled environment. It's definitely going to benefit him and some of the other LSU players, and it goes like that for every school. It's not just LSU that benefits from a controlled environment, but it's just really interesting to me. But there were two other former Sun Devils who went out and competed at the combine, one of whom absolutely blew the doors off of the competition and may have locked himself up as a top 100 player. We're going to talk about him in just 1 second. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what new adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives. Class exclusive Google built-in is always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen information system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, which has room up to 8 people, and expansive cargo capacity, and advanced availability at 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Of course, you have the 2024 Nissan Armada as well. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop at nissanusa.com. Thanks again for tuning in and making us your first podcast of the day. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, wherever you get those shows. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. You should also check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and Amazon Fire. Stay up to date on all that good stuff. Biggest news stories from every league, college, and professional. Back into our conversation. One of the Sun Devils who absolutely dominated, former Sun Devils, who dominated the combine, of course, to no surprise, is Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall, man, did he make himself a lot of money. He went into the combine as someone who had a lot of pretty good tape between ASU and Florida. He showed off a lot of skill. The former Chandler kid measured in really well, 6'1", 189 pounds, just under 31-inch arm length, 9.25-inch hands. Pretty good looking there. In fact, the Next Gen Stats had him as his athletic score estimate the 8th wide receiver at the 2024 Combine, 83 point overall. He was the 17th in total score. His production score was 23rd, but production means a little bit less when you are taking a look at a player of Pearsall's caliber. It translates to the pros. Here's everything he did, and he did everything. 40-yard dash, 4.41. This is a fast kid, little white lightning. Races down the field. He was a deep threat at Arizona State. He was a deep threat at Florida. That's the way he profiles at the next level. You get him in an offense that's got big arm guys like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or insert other team, other quarterback, you are going to have somebody that is able to just absolutely blow the doors off of opposing defenses. His 10-yard split was a 1.57. That's also pretty good for your get up and go. He had a 42-inch vertical. That's also pretty good. Pearsall can get up there. He's got the hops. He's got a 10-foot, 9-inch broad jump, which is also very, very impressive to see the explosiveness. And that's something that I don't think people totally grasp. So for the people who don't watch a lot of the combine or aren't big into the NFL draft period, or maybe trying to get into it, people look at vertical jump, broad jump, and they wonder why it's so important. And it shows off the explosion and the athletic ability to just overall break off big plays and show that you're not like a stiff player. You're able to bend, you're able to move, get up there. That's where those are important. His 3-cone drill, he had a 6.64, also pretty darn good. 20-yard shuttle, 4.05, and he actually had 17 reps of 225 on the bench press. Pretty good. Overall, the actual combine results for the drills look great. But Pearsall also looked good in the route running and in the gauntlet and all the other actual activities that they have the receivers participate in to show off their actual receiving skills. That's where I was also really impressed by Pearsall, was seeing that this athleticism that we've come to know from him also translates on the athletic scale, but it just looks like he was really able to separate himself from some of the other competition. And this is a very deep wide receiver class. Ricky Pearsall needed to have a combine to help him stand out, because while I don't think he's a first-round guy, he was going to be someone who was going to be trying to get into that day 2 conversation. And this was a performance that really helped solidify it. He had to find a way to stand out amongst the Xavier Legettes of the world and amongst the Jermaine Burtons and all sorts of other guys who I can't think of off the top of my head. But Pearsall needed to find a way to stand out. And I would tell you he definitely found a way to stand out oh my gosh. I wanted to say for the Sun Devils, but he is a Florida Gator, unfortunately. Wish he never left. There was few wide receivers who showed up to the combine that absolutely dominated the way that Ricky Pearsall did. And like I said, this is really going to help him come draft day and be able to climb up those boards and be able to climb up the receiver rankings. Before, I don't really know that Pearsall was someone that a lot of media guys were aware of and a lot of teams were placing really high up their boards. Obviously, take that with a grain of salt because I'm not in a war room, but we do hear from analysts kind of what other teams think of him. And we didn't hear too much about Ricky Pearsall, but come the end of the combine, his name was definitely brought up a little bit more. And you wonder how high he can climb and if he's able to find himself into the top 100 picks. This was as good a performance as somebody is going to put up to try and get themselves into the top 100 picks. He found a way to stand out with good size. I mean, he's not a small kid. He's not 5'8", he's 6'1". That is a really good size for future pro receivers. Really good 40 time, 4.41. Dude was flying. So when you have a tall receiver who can move down the field, that's going to be attractive to teams. But we've also seen some of the tape during his time with both Florida and Arizona State where he was able to catch the ball really well. And he had arguably the catch of the year this past season where he just palmed the ball one-handed, no problem for him. He's a good route runner. He's an experienced route runner. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. This combine performance was pivotal for him to be able to start separating himself from his peers. And that's exactly what he did. By the end of the combine, I feel like you looked at Ricky Pearsall and you went, maybe not a sleeper in the draft, but man, did he make himself some serious money. And there's one other Sun Devil who went to the combine, one other former Sun Devil who went to the combine. And while this guy didn't blow the roof off, I still think that he had a pretty decent combine. And we're going to talk about him in just 1 second. Really intrigued to see where he ends up. Let's go ahead and talk about him. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. One more time, I appreciate you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Wherever you get your podcast, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. And check out Locked On Sports today. Stay in touch with all the combine news. Stay in touch with March Madness, which is coming up. And we're going to have a conversation about the Sun Devils basketball team this week as well, with 2 more games left. Stay in touch with every sport across every league, college and pro. Let's round out our conversation with the last former Sun Devil who participated at the combine. That, of course, is Johnny Wilson. Johnny Wilson, who was at Arizona State, was not able to get onto the field consistently, transfers to Florida State, and I wouldn't call him a household name, but he found himself a little niche with the team, and he became a deep threat for the Seminoles, and he became what we saw at Arizona State at a more consistent rate. And there's definitely warts to his game. Like, Johnny Wilson doesn't have the best hands in the world. We joke around, and I've said this many a times, and I'm not the only person to say this, but he doesn't like the easy catches. He likes the tough catches. And we saw that throughout his career, both at Arizona State and Florida State. So the combine was a really important event for him to be able to come in and show off some athleticism to help out his case to stand out. He came in, and the overall makeup, I guess, would be what I'm trying to say, stood out. 6'6", 231, 35 and 3/8 inch hands, or arms, excuse me. That would be insane. He does have 10-inch hands, though, which is also pretty nuts. So he looks the part. His combine, the actual results of it, solid, I would tell you. 4.52 40-yard dash. I actually really like that for somebody who's playing it his way and his size. I mean, he's a long strider, but I like that run for him. A 1.55 split, also not too bad. 10 foot 8 inch broad jump, pretty good. 37-inch vertical, can't complain. 4.11 second 20-yard shuttle. Didn't do the bench press, didn't do the 3-cone. Interested why he didn't do the 3-cone, because I thought that overall he looked pretty solid as an athlete, but the 3-cone shows your ability to be cutting back and forth. Doesn't do that. And Wilson's not known for being an elite route runner, but interesting that he chose not to do that. Now, when the actual individual drills with like the catching and the combine, the gauntlet and deep ball and everything, I thought he looked pretty good for the most part. I think that Johnny Wilson needed a very strong combine to get himself into really good draft position, and I think his combine was solid. So I don't know that I would say mission accomplished, but certainly did not fail. I mean, it's not like he left the combine and just plummeted his draft stock. I just don't think that he moved it. I think that he went in as a day 3 guy and left as a day 3 guy. The thing that really has got him in the right direction, though, is the actual build of him. He was 6'7" in college, and turns out he's 6'6". Like, he's still tall. He was 231 pounds, and he ran a 4.5. Like, he looks the part as an athlete. 10-inch hands is huge. I mean, he's just going to suction cup the football. He looks the part, for sure. What he does at the next level, who knows? But the bottom line here for Johnny Wilson is it was a solid combine. It was not terrible. It just, to me, didn't stand out enough. And there was a lot of good receivers at the combine, which doesn't help his case. Ricky Pearsall, who we just talked about, dominated. A.D. Mitchell from Texas dominated. Xavier Worthy ran a combine record 4.21 40 time. You had Brian Thomas Jr. had a really good combine. Like, there were some massive standouts at the combine. Tez Walker from North Carolina. And it was unfortunate that Johnny Wilson was not able to stand out as much as those guys. And that hurts him. More than himself hurting his stock is everybody else that participated hurt his stock. It's not something that Johnny was really able to control, because everyone else around him was just testing as physical freaks. Those guys I mentioned all looked outstanding. They really improved their draft stock, and it hurt Johnny's draft stock, but not because of his performance. It was just because of everyone else. And it happens. Like, he still looks how he played. He still looks like a good athlete. He still looks like a big receiver. He still looks like somebody who can make the big catches. It didn't bode well in his favor. And it happens. I really did think that Johnny Wilson had a solid combine. He just didn't stand out nearly as much as the other guys, which out of his control to feed a fat horse. Overall, I think the Sun Devils had, or former Sun Devils, man, that just sucks to say. I think the former Sun Devils had solid performances. Ricky Pearsall blew the doors off. Johnny Wilson was solid. Jayden Daniels didn't participate. We'll see him at his pro day, and we'll have to reassess and see how that all settles. And yeah, that's your update on former Sun Devils at the Combine. Again, you did not have Ro Torrence compete, which was very unfortunate, but we'll have to cross that bridge later on and see how the draft stock improves for him when ASU has their pro day and several other Sun Devils advertise themselves for the next level. What do you guys think of those three guys at the Combine? Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your podcast, though, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Make us your first listen of the day. And thanks to my everydayers who are here every day. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We have plenty to talk about. We have to take a look at the Sun Devils basketball team as they enter the final stretch of the regular season. 2 more games this week, and then we have the Pac-12 tournament. There's a lot that they need to do to be able to get into the tournament itself for March Madness. I don't know if it's possible, but we're going to lay out how it could happen. We're going to talk about that more, so stay tuned. I'll see you guys then, and until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.